We have a small plate.
No, it's about it, but you're pacing it up for the day.
Well, if you're going on 10 days, then
Gosh,
So
not just no donuts. We're going healthy.
Is it also is lifeguard and counselor?
Let's see
Oh,
how.
I'm sorry, it's just lifeguarding. And then also just lifeguarding and
See the
CPT.
workshop
CPT
here.
is paying $100 a day.
Okay.
Here, bring them over to your
I'm
house.
also getting $75
It's
for
okay.
they offered me.
Huh?
That's what I got.
Yeah, I thought it was like a normal amount, but like.
Okay, Yitzi, hold on.
I am is offering sponsored donuts.
Okay, I'm very emotional at this moment.
Wait, and then he said,
Okay, good morning. I'd like to thank everybody for coming. And Baruch Hashem, I feel very zocha to be giving a share within the week of the Shiva of Rav Gershon Edelstein on Rav Gershon Edelstein in a specific halachic situation that I heard of. Now, many of us know that in Eretz Yisrael, this past week, there was a big avelos of the loss of Doli Hador, Rav Gershon Edelstein, the Shiva of Panovich. He was nifter at 100 years old. In particular, it was meaningful to me that just 4 weeks to the day that he was nifter, almost to the hour, I was in his house. I was off to be by him, together with Talmidim. We were probably one of the last groups, for sure the last group from America, that were able to get in, to see, get a bracha. Such a great gadol. Seems the week before we were there, he wasn't even seeing people. We went to him on a Tuesday. By that Thursday was the infamous protest that occurred outside his home. Disgrace to Kavod Torah. And the whole saga with the Angel's Bakery boycott happened after that. Now, let me just explain a little bit, quick glimpse before I get into biography. Rav Gershon Edelstein was a huge Talmud Chacham, Adam Gadol Ad Ma'od. And he was so above the fray of negativity, attacks, someone with absolute pure midos. Yeah, he didn't deserve boycotts outside his home. And I'll get back to that. The Israeli politics, judicial review business. But Rav Gershon was also somebody that was so removed from Gashmias. Yeah, he didn't need black and white cookies, right? He didn't even need tangerines. They say about Rav Gershon that what he ate for dinner was his kids' leftover scraps of bread that they didn't finish, they didn't eat. That's what he said it was okay for him. He was just so far removed from anything other than Torah, and an amazing person, which we'll talk in a moment about. But the funny thing is, by his bed, when he's in the ICU in the hospital on Shavuos, he asked basically for a cholent pot to be brought to his bed. Why did Rav Gershon Edelstein need a cholent pot bedside in the hospital?
The Shabbos?
On Yom Tov. Yeah, on Shavuos, Friday.
There's only one day there.
Right?
The Shabbos.
Then it's wrong.
Right. Now, to understand this story, what exactly was going on there, I would like to first go through a little more of a biography of who Rav Gershon Edelstein was, go over 2 sugyas in halacha, and then by the end of Shir, hopefully we'll understand the cholent pot and Rav Gershon. Now, Rav Gershon Edelstein was born in Russia. His family, like everyone back then, was persecuted against learning Torah. He went actually to a cheder in Russia. In Russia was him. At that point, his family had himself, his brother Yaakov Edelstein, He had a sister, and Rahman son in Russia, as he was a young boy, his mother passed away. At the same time, the Russians closed down the little cheder that he went to. His father saw the writing on the wall. It's dangerous. We're not going to be able to keep our Yiddishkeit. His father was able to get visas to travel to Eretz Yisrael. So, Gershon Edelstein's father, his other brother, his sister, and his grandmother, his father's mother, made the long journey from Russia to Israel by boat. They got there. They did not want to affiliate with any political party when they arrived in Israel. And thus, they didn't have people waiting there for them so simply, and funds and this. And they were trying to figure out what they could do. So they found a place for some distant relatives that could hold two people. So the father sent his mother and his daughter to go over there. They split up. While he said, I'm staying with the children, with the boys. I want to teach them Torah. They had no place to go. They ended up in the Ramat Hasharon, which then was basically farmland. They lived in a chicken coop. Again, we're not talking any major, you're talking about planks, a little bit of shade. That's where they lived. And a little bit over time, when they're in the Ramat Hasharon, the people there, the farmers, the merchants, whatever, realized that this person is a great rabbi. The father was a Rav in Europe. The grandfather was a huge Rav in Europe. And they appointed Tzvi Yehuda Edelstein as Rav of Ramat Hasharon. He was the Rav. Okay, fine. What did he do all day besides serving as Rav? He was the Rebbe of his two sons. He sat and learned with them day in and day out. They had a whole Seder. He taught them. He said they owned one Gemara and they borrowed two Gemaras from the Shul. So Rav of the Shul, he was able to borrow two Gemaras. They had three Gemaras they were able to learn. And this went on for quite some time. At one point, randomly in the Shul, the Rav walked in and he saw a sefer he never saw before, Sefer Chazon Ish. And he asked about it. So one of the simple farmers said, I was in Bnei Brak the other day, and there was this old man who came, just immigrated to the country. And I saw it looked like he could use some money. So I gave him some money, and he gave me the sefer. This older of Edelstein opened up the sefer, learned the sefer, was very impressed with it. He had the author's address in Bnei Brak in the sefer. He made a trip with his two sons to visit that such a person came to Eretz Yisrael. And that visit changed the life of the Edelstein family forever. The Chazon Ish was impressed with the father of the Rav, but he was equally impressed, if not blown away, that two kids living in a chicken coop, learning with their father, is able to attain high levels of learning. This went on for years, and they kept up a correspondence of meetings with the Chazon Ish, and the Chazon Ish was very machsh of them. So much so, he's the one who guided them. At a certain point, they opened a new yeshiva in Eretz Yisrael after the war, called the Panovich Yeshiva. And the founder of the Panovich, the original founder of Yosef Kahneman, was a Talmud of the Chavetz Chaim. The Panovich story is such an amazing story. Years ago, I was taking actually the 12th grade there. The Panovich was filming for their video, for their dinner. I was outside showing the boys this amazing story. And basically, they thought it was pretty cool that a whole group from Miami are visiting Panovich. So they videoed me and interviewed me for the Panovich dinner. But one of the things I showed the boys was there's a pasuk. It's on the building behind the yeshiva. You could see it clearly from the porch. But it's also in small written on the actual building itself. Tzion tiel fleita. It's a pasuk in Nach. Why do they have, Israel will be your refuge. Tzion tiel fleita. When Yosef Kahneman went to the Panovich Rav right before the war, the Chavetz Chaim told that pasuk. He took that pasuk as a directive for life. He left Europe, went to Eretz Yisrael. He was saved by the war. After the war was over, he viewed it as his life mission, the directive from the Chavetz Chaim. He's going to establish a yeshiva on the barren hills of Bnei Brak, and he's going to put that, emblaze that pasuk on the building. Sion Tiyel Feita. Rav Gershon Edelstein and his brother Yaakov were the first 4, 5, 6 Talmidim in the Panovich Yeshiva. Panovich Yeshiva started with half a dozen, they didn't have a minyan. Talmidim, he was one of the first. This Rav Gershon Edelstein never left the yeshiva from that point on. He was in Panovich. He first started together with the yeshiva. Rav Kahneman was an unbelievable person, builder. Besides building a yeshiva, what do you have after the war? You had refugees. He opened up an orphanage, which is still connected to Panovich, I think, today. And the top bacher in yeshiva was this young Rav Gershon Edelstein. Panovich Rav first appointed him. His first job was to tutor and learn with the boys in the orphanage.
Not a good sign.
That was his job. From there, he eventually became a rebbe in the yeshiva. Later, he became Rosh Yeshiva of the Panovich Yeshiva. And eventually, he was put up to the position after Steinemann was nifter, together with Rav Chaim Kanievsky. He was viewed as the Gadol Ador. Rav Chaim Kanievsky wouldn't sign a public proclamation without Rav Gershon Edelstein signing with him. They were partners. Obviously, when Rav Chaim Kanievsky passed away, he was a sole person. Now, for many of us, we didn't hear of him much. But that's part and parcel of his whole nature. He was very soft, he was very quiet. Rav Chaim was, quote unquote, more in the limelight. He was doing his job, teaching Talmidim in the yeshiva. I was trying to think of like a mashal to describe who Rav Gershon Edelstein was. And this is an injustice. I'm not doing justice fully by this. But if anyone who remembers knew Rav Pam Zatzal was a tremendous gadol here in America, right? Some called him the Chavetz Chaim of this generation. A very quiet person.
Yeah.
I spoke to Talmidim in his share. They told me, if you would ask us who would become the next Gadol Ador, we would say anybody but Rav Pam. He was just so quiet, Pam even sat in the middle of the base medrash in Torah Das. He never sat in the front. But Rav Gershon Edelstein was like that. A quiet person by nature. But he was a quiet leader. And eventually was pushed to the front to take the reins of Klal Yisrael. And he was somebody who was like so driven by Musar, always talked about the importance of learning Musar. He was somebody who, you have a video of him answering parents, question and answer session. Talked about parent asking, what happens if my kid doesn't get up for Shacharis, sleeps late? What should I do? How should I get him to come? Just give him a little kick, old school. If Gershon Edelstein says, absolutely not. The only way to talk to this generation is being pleasant, positive, never negative. He might have been 100 years old, but he fully got today's youth. He understood it. And the person said, okay, maybe I'll gently prod them. No. Again, you have to do it nicely, respectfully. You're not going to accomplish things by being negative. That's the type of person he was. He fully got it. And there were stories. There was someone told me a story of an Israeli, originally a secular couple. The husband was an actor. The wife was a television personality, a news reporter. And they were connected to Ramat HaSharon, where his brother, Yaakov Edelstein, ended up taking over his father's position after his father passed away. And he was makar of this family. And when they're big shilas, Yaakov Edelstein brought them to his brother, the Gadol Ador, meet him. So he was meeting with regular Bali Tshuva, all different types. And this woman is one of the top newscasters in Israel. Today she's from somewhere in Shetel. and there she was given the news in the middle of a newscast that Gershon Edelstein passed away, and she broke down in tears. I said, "Well, people might know about his Torah greatness or this or that. I know of him as a person. He always respected us. It was about tshuva, and she couldn't control herself. She just was blown away by such a person. That's who he was. The leftists, don't know anything. Protest outside his house. They don't know who they're messing with. The person was such a great Adam Gadol. Okay, so now that we have a little bit of a picture of who this Gershon Edelstein was, what's pshat that he's there in the hospital bed? Anyone knows the story. It's also such an amazing thing. He gave shir almost to the last moment of his life. The day before he was nifter, he gave a shir that was his oldest, greatest Talmidim were there at the shir transcribing the shir. It was also recorded and played for the Talmidim back in Panovich. His last moments on earth, his mind was crystal clear. He was giving a shir at the highest levels. His last moments was I believe Tuesday morning. He was writing notes, preparing for shir. As he was writing, he just passed away. Mid-sentence. Somebody compared, if you look, we're learning Maseches Bava Basra. People ask, where did Rashi die? Right? Worms, France, right? Where did he die? Chav Tes Amud Aleph in Bava Basra. It says, when the Gira says of Rashi, Kan Meis Rashi. Here is where Rashi died. He died writing his parish. Because Gershon Edelstein was zochet to such a misa. He died writing his life's work, giving shir, wearing his boots, right there. That's what he did. Now, so this great man, why did he need a cholent pot by his bedside? Listen to this story. He was taken into the hospital on Erev Shavuos. Earlier, the night of Shavuos, earlier in Erev Shavuos, he made an Erev Tafshilin. Right? This year, the way it fell out, Yom Tov was Friday, and we had Shabbos. Okay, in Shabbos Shavuos for us in America, but it was Shabbos there. You're going to do preparations for Shabbos on Friday, on Yom Tov. How can you do that? The trick is only with an Erev Tafshilin. Or if Gershon Edelstein was nervous of the following scenario. Since I made the brach on the Erev Tafshilin, and now I'm in the hospital, I'm not going to do anything to prepare for Shabbos. What can I do?
Brochos.
Bracha L'Vatala. We'll see for a moment if it really is a Bracha L'Vatala. That's what I'm about to discuss. So to rectify that, the family got permission from the hospital, which everyone knows the hospital is not so easy to get, to bring in some type of cholent pot. It has to be ala esh, so it's got to be on. And on Friday, Rav Gershon Edelstein stirred the cholent pot from his bedside to fulfill his bracha that he made in the Erev Tafshil. That's why he did it. Now, I would like to understand, this is a story that's reported, I'd like to go through the halachos, really first of the Erev Tafshilin, then the halachos of Bracha L'Vatala, understand where this case falls, and see why Rav Gershon did what he did. That's the goal for today's show. So the first thing, let's talk Hilchos Erev Tafshilin. Okay? This comes up, we know, quite a bit. Anytime you have Shabbos right next to Yom Tov, you're going to run into Erev Tafshilin issues. Now, what you usually know about Erev Tafshilin is everyone's warning you. Don't forget the Erev Tafshilin. Right? It's a big deal. If a person forgets it, so you get one chance. Right? You know the rules? If you're allowed to use, there's a Rav, right? We usually say the Rabbanim in the community do an Erev Tafshilin, not just for themselves, but also for others. You can rely on that in Shas and Chak. The basic Gather they give, once a lifetime. Right, one get out of jail free. Other than that, you're dunsky. That's a big deal. That means you can't prepare food on Friday for Shabbos. You better get invited out. Yes?
Is an individual allowed to make his error for other people in the community?
Yes. But simply the process, the question was asked, could one individual do it for others? The answer is simply yes, but with one important condition. They need to, the other person, you have to be magnet to them. So that you have to be connected to that other person. So the other person can maybe pay for that, to be included in your Erev Tavshilin, but there has to be some type of connection between the two parties. Huh? Yes. The rabbi does it for everyone. That's because he has the responsibility of being the rabbi. It could automatically connect those people, but again, it's a b'diavad and it's a kanas. We say it can only be used once. You have to make your own. Yes.
Is the ones only per neighborhood? So if you move elsewhere, can you get another shot?
The question asked is the once per neighborhood. There's I could only use that rabbi one time, right? So Mr. Mayor is saying I'm ready to move to get another shot. Right. I'll get a new rabbi. Oh, this is very dangerous. The Baal Batim just heard, right? I'm going to have to put this to shame in a moment. But the Baal Batim heard if they change the rabbi, maybe they get more Erev Tavshilin slots. No. No such thing. Right? The Rabbanim are listening to the share thanking me. I saved them their contracts. Right? Right? We might as well switch to rabbi. We'll get more Erev Tavshilin slots. No. That's not how it works. Oh boy, I've heard reasons to switch to rabbi. This is a new one.
How about jumping ship and going to another shul?
Right, jumping ship, going to another shul. No. It's on you. You got one get out of jail free life. Right? I didn't know that.
To change
Boy, am I in
yourself.
trouble.
Yes.
Get remarried.
Right.
Okay, don't worry about it. You just start wearing tefillin under in Hawaii, it'll be fine.
I did that.
I know.
Now, so I'll go through, let's first go through the actual Seder of the Erev Tavshilin, and I want to show some interesting halachas. I put in the sheets, we make a bracha, right? Obviously a bracha with the Shem Hashem. Baruch atah Hashem, Elokeinu melech haolam, asher kishalom mitzvos v'tzivanu, al mitzvos Erev. That's pretty simple. You're making a bracha, al mitzvos Erev. Then after you're making a declaration, of course this declaration is written in Aramaic. Right? Now, I wouldn't mind, right? You could read it,
Reading
you know,
is not easy.
art scroll English, but I'll quickly try to translate. Bahadin Eruva, with this Erev, Shara Luna, Lafuye, Lavushule, to bake, to cook, Lamtune, to do Hatmana, to keep things warm, Ladluke Sharga, literally to light a fire, Sakana, Lumeviko, Tzurchina, to fix things, do all our needs. Miyom Tuva l'Shabbasa, from Yom Tov to Shabbos. Now, really, that's where most people stop. But the next line is Lana l'chol Yisrael Adam b'Yerazos. Lana for myself and for all the Jews living in this city. Right? That's the phrase which is said by the rabbi. Right? If you look at the top of Art Scroll gives Ochel Erev b'Yada. You're supposed to hold the Erev in your hand. Right? That's usually what we use is a matzah, one cooked food, like an egg. That's the most common thing used. Omar bracha v'nosach b'adin. And you say the bracha and the nosach. Amar ba'ad b'nei iro. If you're making it for the people of your city, most of anugam look at the cigarim, then you add those extra lines. V'yizkar lahem ha'erev v'ayidei acher. And then you have to be mezaka the erev through another person. Chilul yizkar yidei ishto over nebeisol shamarev. But you can't do the Rav procedure. Can't just be, okay, take this for the people of the city. Can't give it to his kids or to his wife. Not that we're discriminating against women or children, but rather, afil gedolim, it means somchal shulchan. The problem is, they're already part of my Erev. My children, my household, are already part of my personal Erev. So I can't use them to be mezaka for the people of the city. Really what the Rav needs to do is call in his neighbor, the Jew is not part of his household, and do it.
So in
Yes.
situations, let's say in Hollywood, I think, one side of Sterling Avenue is one city and the other side is another city, isn't it?
Yeah.
Zip code, not necessarily.
Right.
But there are different blocks.
It doesn't matter the city, Harvey, you get one per
No, but
lifetime.
when the rabbi is making this.
Oh, interesting. Yes.
Like, I live in an unincorporated day.
Yes. Very good point.
Yeah,
Right.
City line
It's
around-
right. Right. I think that's a very important thing. Right. Let's say your rabbi doesn't live in your city. That doesn't work so simply. The Rav is doing it for the people in the city, not beyond that.
Same Erev
But it
Chatzera.
was-
Why can't it be the same Erev Tafshilin?
Okay? Good point. Yes.
If you are visiting someone
Oh, boy.
else for Yom Tov,
Yes.
do
Ooh.
you ask them to be Yotzei you with their Erev in case there's anything you need to do? Help them in the kitchen Erev Shabbos?
Yeah. That's very
and
important.
you covered or not
Very good
covered?
point. Very good point. Yes. What this really means also is when you're a guest by someone's house for Yom Tov, and it's a Yom Tov, not every Yom Tov has this, but a Yom Tov that goes Friday into Shabbos, yes, you should ask the Baal Habayis, could I join your Erev? And really, maybe give him some money or this, and Mizaka, to be part of his house, yes, that is a big deal. Yes, you do want to be covered. Now, let me go through some steps. There's a discussion in the poskim. Let's say you're not doing any malacha. You definitely have this with people. They stay in their home, but they're eating all their meals. Let's say their kid lives not far from them, Baruch Hashem. So they're sleeping at home, but they're eating all their meals by the child's house. So do you need an Erev Tafshilin? So the question is, okay, well, I'll give you one example. I'm lighting a candle on Yom Tov, right? I'm going to light a candle, right, Friday night into Shabbos.
You're allowed to, because it's not Shabbos.
No, Friday night, Friday Yom
It was
Tov,
for Shabbos.
Friday Yom Tov into
It's
Shabbos.
for Shabbos, not for
So on Yom Tov, on Friday night, on Friday Eve, I'm going to be lighting a candle for Shabbos. Does that need an Erev Tafshilin? So most of the poskim say that it does not require. Some say yes, some say not. Practically, we do not make a bracha. Most poskim say included in that is the Chazon Ish. That one would not, and Moshe too, I'm quoting the Chazon Ish for a reason, that it's debatable if you make an Erev Tavshilin just for that. And therefore, the middle of Chazon Ish or Moshe say is not to make a bracha just for that. So practically speaking, and this is where one stop with Rav Gershon. Rav Gershon might have been eating in his house. I doubt if Gershon was cooking. Now, I believe his Rebbetzin is ready Neftaris, right? So he's the one lighting Shabbos and Yom Tov candles. So what do? You wouldn't make a bracha, the Chazon Ish or Moshe Paskin, once we finish the thought, wouldn't make a bracha for your Erev Tavshilin if you're just lighting candles. So therefore what we normally do is do something else which for sure would require a bracha, and thereby our bracha will go on everything. In other words, there is a tzad in halacha, you should be making a bracha on your Shabbos candles also. But since it's a major machlokas, we pass on suffer brachos lachol, I wouldn't make a bracha just for lighting candles. So therefore the correct response would be, okay, even though I'm eating somewhere else, but I should do something in the preparation of the food, so therefore I could for sure be mechayev in a bracha, and do that. I assume that was Rav Gershon's normal way he did it. He always prepared something so he could make a bracha on the Erev Tavshilin, work for his candles, and the meal of the food too. Yes.
He did that, and he had the children's hut there in his hospital room.
Right.
So my question is, if your children's place and just bring it to your house and make the bracha, and then do you have to eat it in your house, or can you bring it back to your kids'
Yes,
place
it's a
to
good
eat
question. I'm not
on
fully
Shabbos?
sure. But you're right. The thing itself is mashma. The story itself is mashma. That, again, assuming it's a Ma'aser Rav and we could learn from it. But yeah,
Well, a bit for going to
that
the
it's
anyway.
the Eruv goes on you. It doesn't go on your house. It goes on your household, but it's beyond the parameters of your house. Even if you're eating out for a meal, right? I made the Eruv Tavshil in my house. You don't have to go to the other house to make the Eruv Tavshil. You can make the Eruv Tavshil in your house. It's a thing on the person itself.
According to
Now,
according to the Machmir opinion, that
Wouldn't make a bracha.
that you have to do it even if it's just for lighting the Shabbos candle.
Right.
I'm gonna get Rebbe in trouble now. I'm sorry about this,
Yeah, sure.
but I'm still gonna do it. People who would be going on a Pesach program or something like that. So now all of a sudden, one person's making an Erev Tavshilin for 3,000 people.
So
and in that
yeah,
hallway,
very good
there's
point.
People lighting
You're under the
candles.
same roof.
I understand,
Right.
but still, everyone is now lighting candles.
Right,
And
right. So again, this is part of the question was posed when you go to a Pesach program, who's taking care of the Erev Tavshil? So you would hope that the Rav HaMachshir is doing that, and he's doing that for the most part. The Pesach guests are probably not involved in any bit of cooking, but right. But he's making it. You're right. He's making the bracha for everybody, and that would allow you to light Shabbos candles. Assuming that works. Now, assuming it's done, it works. So you see, this is the assumption. This whole story I discussed with the posek and went through step by step, understanding where of Gershon was coming from. So this first step, you hear that Mastama of Gershon normally. What he did was he was involved in some form of hachanas, doing malacha on Erev Shabbos. This way, he could make a bracha on the Erev Tavshil, and he's not just going to light Yom Tov candles with a bracha, because that's a machlokas poskim. Now, okay, but what happens in a scenario where I did something, right? It sounds like according to Gershon, according to the story, if Gershon was afraid, that would be a bracha l'atol. So let's spell out the scenario. If Gershon made a bracha on Erev Yom Tov, because he was going to do making an Erev Tavshilin, with the das that he's going to do a malacha on Yom Tov. Now, Gershon never got a chance, I assume, to light, even if Yom Tov candles that was from Chol, never got a chance to light Shabbos candles. So he didn't get a chance to do anything. But Lamaisa, when he made the bracha, was he intending to do that? Yes. Right now, when you make the bracha, do you do anything wrong? No, of course not. Gershon Edelstein made the bracha, assuming that come tomorrow, I'm going to do preparations for Shabbos. Everything will be great. Well, so what happened? He got sick. He had to go to the hospital. Is that a bracha of Atala? Simply put, absolutely not. Because at the time you made the bracha, you were very much intending to do what the bracha entailed tomorrow. Now, hold on 1 second. I want to give an example. The Chassam Sofer deals with the following case. The halacha is a person, before he's mafresh truma, before he separates truma, he makes a bracha. Okay? So let's say a person goes mafresh truma. Fine. He makes a bracha before he does it. Over Las Yasin, goes and does it. Halacha also is, when it comes to trumas, so I'm taking off trumas and maestros, I'm taking off from these fruits, X amount. It's interesting halacha, you're allowed to change your trumas and maestros. I originally took it off of these fruits. You know what? I want to switch. I want to take off these fruits. Okay? You'd have to go. There's a process where you can undo the truma on these, then do the truma on those. You're allowed to change. You're allowed to change of heart. And you make a new bracha. Does that make your first bracha l'atala? I made a bracha, I'm separating trumas and maasros over here. But then, after you did that, you decide to switch. No, I don't want to use those peiros. I want to use these peiros, these fruits. I switch my trumas and maasros. Does that make my original bracha a bracha l'atala? Chassam Sofer says absolutely not. If you look in the bottom of your sheets, Chassam Sofer, Yeridea, Siman Shin Chaf. I'm reading from like the 5th line. Chassam Sofer Ubir, he explains the kivin the b'shaito Ha'isa Hafrasha Truma Kedin. Since when you did the Hafrasha of Truma, the separating of Truma, you did it properly. This is part of the mitzvah. You're allowed to change. So the way we view Barach L'Vatalas is at the moment you're doing it. Are you in the right for doing what you're doing? 100%. What happened later, he switched. Okay. It doesn't take away what happened to what you did. Similarly over here, person made a bracha. Afterwards, an ones happened, something beyond his control. He was sick. He was in the hospital. Is that a bracha l'atala? Seemingly not. Hope for care. The Chassam Sofer's case, you're bringing upon yourself to change the original scenario. Even that's not a bracha l'atala. I could go out of my way to change my trumas and maestros, and the bracha I made originally, it's not a bracha l'atala. I was in control the entire time. I brought it upon myself. The Chassam Sofer says that case is not a bracha l'atala. So certainly, when something's beyond my control, Gershon didn't know he was going to be sick, so of course that's not a bracha l'atala. So what's he worried about? So I'll show you an interesting sheet in halach, which is amazing. When this first story first came out, so people, it was publicized the story. Oh, what's Rav Gershon worried about on his bedside? He's worried about bracha l'atala. People said this. People saw the story. People said, I don't understand it. What's he worried about? It's not a bracha l'atala. So I was very excited because I remembered not too long ago I gave halacha share, lamdasha share in yeshiva, and I came across an interesting shita. Hilchos Sfiras Omer. What happens? A person makes, right? Person counts Sfiras Omer. So we know there's difference of opinions. Is it one mitzvah or 49 separate mitzvahs? Okay. Let's assume it's one big mitzvah. Now, I make the bracha day 1, day 2, day 3, day 4. Day 7, Rahman Tzad, a person got sick, rushed to the hospital. He was out for a little bit. And next thing you know, he wakes up the next day, he missed the day. Is he excused? 100% he's excused. Is his bracha that he made retroactively a bracha l'atala?
The original ones?
Yeah. Right? You'd think not.
Does he have the intention and the likely ability to do it?
Right. When he did it, he had everything was there. He had intentions to finish. He had an alarm every day. He's going to remember to do it. Everything was great. There is a tzad in halacha. Now, for the record, the Mata Moshe uses this as a reason why we don't recite a Shachiyanu on the bracha of Sfiras Omer, because a situation like this might come up, and then retroactively be a bracha l'atala. He doesn't use this for the individual daily bracha, and that itself was a lamda shahak. What's the difference between the two? But in halacha, regarding the broader topic of Sfiras Omer, there is a tzad, there's a Mata Moshe who says there is a tzad to say that there is a concept of a retroactive bracha l'atala. That even though when you did it, Shas Maisa, there was nothing wrong, you were fully ready to go, you planned on finishing it. But since retroactively, it ended up not being able to do it, even for a big ones, he's talking about that type of case too, still there would be some form of a bracha l'atala. Halacha l'maisa, do we pass them like this? Absolutely not. Chassam Sofer clearly says against that. But is there a precedent in halacha for such an idea? Yes, absolutely. This was Rav Gershon Edelstein. If there is one precedent in halacha to do such an idea, yeah, let's try to make it happen. Let's try to do something to undo such a problem. Would we be worried about such things? If you came to me with such a shaila, I'll tell you, don't worry about it. But Rav Gershon Edelstein was on a much higher madrega than us. This is what occupied space in his mind. And he's sitting there literally on the deathbed. I don't want to say a bracha. And I'll just end with one interesting story. Gershon Edelstein was also known. Another thing is he was, from the time of his youth, the Chazon Ish appointed him to be the Baal Tokea in the Panovich Yeshiva. As a bacher, 18, 20-year-old bacher knows, he was blowing shofar for the Panovich Yeshiva. He kept on blowing shofar through this past year. He's by far modern miracle. He was blowing shofar. There are videos of it. Right? Pervolsky and Nikola learned by him. He learned the shofar by him too. Rav Gershon Edelstein was blowing shofar probably for over 80 years. The Maisa, two of the shofars that he used were borrowed from a Talmud. He left in his tzava that before the burial, the family should do two things. Pay back any loans that he had, and two, make sure to give back the two shofars that belonged to Rav Greineman, his Talmud, that lent it to him. This is a person, what's he worried about? What's his tzava? I want to go up there clean. No issues. One other step. Rav Dara Povorsky, who's Shlita, who's one of the other Rosh Hashivas in Panovich, they've worked together for 70 years. 70 years. They're co-Rosh Hashivas, co-Rebbeim in the Panovich Yeshiva. He said of his friend, this is before he was Nifter, he says, in 70 years, I can never say that we got into an argument. He never did anything against me. 70 years. Imagine a business partner you worked together with for 70 years, and they have no tinus on you. That's Niki Hadas. That's who Rav Gershon Edelstein was. Hopefully with a share like this, we get a better picture of what we lost, especially still in the Shiva of Rav Gershon, and his example, and for us, in our halacha share, a halachic example of what it means to follow Torah to a T. Every little crown on top of a letter, every little nuance in halacha, that's what this man cared about. That's what he should be a schos. We should hear the day that, I don't know him, we should be zocheh to hear his shofar being blown, and